In the now ancient American sitcom The Beverly Hillbillies, the swamp-dwelling Clampetts strike oil. Their kinfolk inform them that with all their wealth, California is the place you ought to be, and so they move to Beverly Hills with its movie stars and swimming pools. Their choice is purely about consumption. They have no economic rationale for being near Los Angeles. The Clampetts' decision mirrors the choices made by millions to move to consumer cities, like Los Angeles, Miami, and Honolulu, that reflect the demand for pleasure, pleasures like warm weather and beautiful sunsets. Los Angeles begins its existence as a Spanish pueblo, a small farming town. It thrived during the California gold rush not because it had gold, but because the meat from its cows could be sold to the more northern miners. Before the Continental Railroad and the Panama Canal, Los Angeles was so inaccessible to the east that its only exports were hides and tallows, cattle products that could withstand an agonizingly long sea voyage. The city's 19th century growth was closely tied to improving its transportation links to the population centers of the east. In 1869, the Los Angeles and San Pedro Railroad connected the city to the harbor in San Pedro Bay, which would eventually become part of the mighty port of Los Angeles. In 1887, Los Angeles acquired a second, more direct railroad connection to the east with the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. A rate war ensued. The inaccessible was becoming accessible. Just as the prospect of the Illinois and Michigan Canal set off the Chicago real estate boom of the 1830s, the railroads helped precipitate the Los Angeles real estate boom of the 1880s. Migrants swarmed in, and local promoters promised that nobody can make a mistake who buys land in Southern California. Naturally enough, many of the over-optimistic buyers did lose money, as the boom quickly turned to bust. But if they had only held on for a few more decades. Los Angeles did have agricultural assets, and after 1892 it also had oil. By the 1920s, after a series of spectacular finds, the region had forests of derricks, and it was a global center of oil production. But somewhat surprisingly, the city's most famous oilman, J. Paul Getty, came to Los Angeles in 1917 for consumption, not for production. He came not for oil wells, but to spend his Oklahoma-earned oil money on high living. Getty couldn't stick to consumption and ended up as a major player in the Los Angeles economy, as well as a philanthropic force. Los Angeles's growth from 50,000 residents in 1890 to 1.24 million in 1930 owed much to the consumer advantages that appealed to Getty, and especially to its magical climate. Richard Nixon's father, Francis, moved to California after suffering from frostbite in Columbus, Ohio. Glenn L. Martin's family relocated west for the good of his mother's health. Martin would become the great pioneer of Los Angeles' aviation industry. Authors like the Wizard of Oz's L. Frank Baum could write anywhere, so why not move to sunny California? Thousands of Midwestern farmers retired to the City of Angels to avoid an old age beset by the fierce winters and hot summers of Iowa and Minnesota. Somewhat remarkably, January temperature is the single best predictor of U.S. metropolitan area growth during the 20th century. Some of that growth reflects pro-business policies, such as right-to-work laws, that were implemented in the South after World War II. Some of that connection reflects the pro-housing policies of cities like Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, and Phoenix, all of which make it far easier to mass-produce housing than many other population centers. But let's face it, the great migration of Americans to warmer places also reflects the fact that people seem to like milder winters, as odd as that may seem to those of us who live in New England. Because Los Angeles grew as a center for consumption rather than production, its population naturally sprawled. New York City's residents valued proximity to its central business districts, and large residential towers were built nearby to provide easy access to the jobs. Retiring Midwestern farmers didn't need easy access to downtown Los Angeles, and it was nicer to have a bit of space around, especially since the mass-produced car provided plenty of mobility. If consumer cities can attract the right entrepreneurs, like Glenn L. Martin, they can become highly productive places as well. The growth of Hollywood also reflected in part the region's consumer appeal. Movie production was perfect for the consumer city of Los Angeles. It didn't need hard-to-ship inputs like coal or steel. Its most important input was talent, and skilled actors liked living in the City of Angels. Shipping produced movie reels was cheap and easy, so locating on the edge of America didn't matter. Moreover, the spectacular and diverse natural geography around Los Angeles provided great backdrops for westerns or pretty much any other kind of movie. So the New York film industry largely decamped for Hollywood. Howard Hughes managed to span Los Angeles' aviation and film industries. He was born in Humboldt, Texas, but experienced California in boarding school. At the age of 20, already rich thanks to his father's engineering success and early death, Hughes relocated to Los Angeles and enjoyed a remarkable career, building and flying airplanes, making movies, and dating movie stars. If the right path towards urban economic success is to attract and train talented people and then get out of their way, then consumer appeal can be a major economic development strategy. One way that you know that a city is a center of consumption rather than production is that its housing prices are particularly high relative to its income levels. In a paper of mine on the rise of the consumer city, I found that 9 of the 10 U.S. cities with the highest prices controlling for incomes were in coastal California. The 10th was Honolulu. This measure of consumer appeal also does quite well at predicting population growth. Los Angeles is now a vast and highly successful economy, not just a place where people come for nice weather. And its success and high housing costs and traffic have spurred a spate of imitators. All of Southern California basks in the same sunlit glow. Las Vegas, perhaps, is a particularly obvious example of a city that offers a less expensive alternative to Los Angeles, with plenty of entertainment and warm weather. Miami may be the most successful consumer city in the U.S. outside of California. The Miami metropolitan area, which includes Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, has grown to over 6 million inhabitants. Miami experienced its land boom during the 1920s, when the city was attracting northern migrants both because of its beaches and because its leaders took a tolerant view of 2 particular forms of consumption, drinking and gambling. Miami acquired its Cuban character after 1959, when thousands fled Castro's revolutionary regime. Since then, Miami has become a consumer capital for almost all of Latin America. It offers an intoxicating cocktail of America's relatively orderly politics, a tropical climate, and at least a bit of Latin culture. 150 years ago, settling in Los Angeles meant moving to the absolute edge of the world. As transportation costs have plummeted, it is easy to locate almost anywhere. So why not live somewhere you find pleasant? Consequently, vast urban populations have moved from places where firms enjoyed a productive advantage, like access to coal mines or river networks, to places where the only innate advantage is good weather. And so Los Angeles and Miami have become thriving capitals of a prosperous consumer society.